trying to convert 4/9 into a percentage. Now, if I gave you a nice easy one, like say 3/10, and I said convert that into a percentage,
30
right?
over 100.
It's going to be 30/100. So you multiply the top and the bottom by 10, and that's what makes the denominator 100. So it's 30%. Now, that's fine. Easy numbers fine. If I gave you 10s or 20s or 5s, all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Where'd that 3/10 come from?
It was an example. It's a different example. Okay. But 4/9 is tricky. There's no whole number that you can multiply 9 by to get 100. Because think of the multiples of 9. What are the multiples of 9? 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90, 99, 99, and then 108. So we skipped, thank you, we skipped over 100. So I can't just multiply it by something easy, right? So therefore, you get your calculator out.
And then use S&D.
So, the first thing you're going to do, actually mine's a bit old. Can I have mine back for a sec?
We give it back to me.
Okay. Now follow along with me. If you go 4 divided by 9, if you're using the same calculator as me, whoops, sorry, you don't get something very useful. It just tells you that, right? So you're like, that was not helpful. So instead, you need to press that SD button, right, with the arrow between it. Okay. Now, we're not finished yet though. This is a classic example of where the calculator will help you, but it won't just spit out the answer to you. You've got to really think. Okay. So let's write this down. This is 0.4444, and the 4s go forever. Now I'm not going to do the dot. You'll see why in a second. Now what I've done is I've converted the fraction into a decimal, but I'm not done yet. I want to convert it into a percentage, right? So here's what I'll do. I'm going to multiply by 100, well not 100 on its own. I'm going to multiply by 100%. Now here's why. Okay, just watch, just watch.
What is Darcy?
100%, right? What does percent mean again?
100.
It means out of 100, right? So what I'm really multiplying by is 100 over 100. That's just 1. So I'm not changing the number. That's really important, okay? It's just like before when you were like, okay, here's a fraction, right? Right? Well, if you divide the top and the bottom by the same thing, right? Divide by 2, divide by 2. It's still the same fraction. It's still a half, right? So here, I have to multiply by 100 and divide by 100. Otherwise, I've actually mucked around with the number and changed it. Okay? So, I'm not just multiplying by 100. That's important. I'll multiply by 100%. Okay? Now, let's just think about the number 100, right? That's going to move the decimal point how many times? How many times? How do you know? It depends on how many zeros there are. Okay? So, I count 1, 2. So I'm going to move the decimal point twice. Okay? I'll do it here. See here, there's my decimal point. I'm going to move it once, and then I'm going to move it twice. It's going to end up there. Okay? So here's what I've got now. 44.444444%. Okay? So there's the percentage, but I could write it just a little bit neater. If you remember from last year, I believe, we learned this thing called dot notation. Right? What does that mean?
It means it stops the 4 recurring.
Yeah, so it's what we call a recurring decimal. Sometimes you read it as 44.4 repeater. Repeater, so it means it goes on and on and on forever. And that's the percentage. Okay? So let me just rehearse. What did I do? Okay? Number 1, you had to chuck into your calculator. Okay? But then it just gave you 4 over 9. So you needed that button, right? SD. Okay? That's what gave you this. Okay? But that's still not a percentage. It's just a decimal. Okay? So in order to change it from a decimal into a percentage, you've got to multiply it by 100%. Okay? By 100%, right? Because you just multiply it by 100, it's a whole new number, right? So it's not the same. The very last thing that we did was we just tied it up the way that we wrote it. Okay? So we had that repeated there, which is a better way to write it.